Okay, so we're back at day 2 talking about voice activation. And so today we chose communication style. And the purpose of this is because we want to know if what we're saying is being received by the people we're communicating it to. We also want to be able to read the room or read the people we're with and understand the intention of what we're trying to say, right?
Yeah. Once we start prioritizing our lives by our values, I was able to realize that time was the only finite resource that I had. There's money's out there. Everything you need is out there except time. We're not going to get any more of it. And so, because I value it so highly, I want to get out of the people around me that I choose to be around me as much as I can, and not waste their energy, and then I also want to prioritize my time and have them get the most out of me that they can. And so
and people like that.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
because they feel valued, and then you also feel valued, and you just kind of pick each other up, and it's a really beautiful exchange that you have. If you can make that happen regularly, then people will love to constantly communicate with you, whether it's about positive things or negative things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things you realize once you start really evaluating why you're communicating and when you're communicating and how you're communicating is that sometimes the less you say, the more your words mean when you say them. People tend to listen more if you're not talking all the time, but there's a balance there as well. We communicate to meet our needs, and to also meet others' needs. And so finding that balance in any given conversation is important. Sometimes we're trying to get information or education or meet a certain need, and sometimes we're helping others meet their needs, and we're finding a balance there, whether we're listening or talking or consoling or directing or whatever it is. So it's important to just choose your words based on what the situation is, not just talk because there's a space to talk.
Yeah, and so when we're talking about communication styles, it looks different. You can get on YouTube and look up some of these speakers, like inspirational speakers or famous speakers out there, and you can see that they all have a very specific style. Same thing with like comedians, and we were talking about that earlier. And so some of the things that you can start to look at for yourself to kind of find your own niche and develop your personal signature in form of communication is like the tone and the softness in your voice, and at what points in time is it acceptable to change those. Do you change those based on your audience? Do you change those based on your situation? Like maybe at work you're going to talk with a soft tone, but when you get home you're a loud person, and so we have a couple of people like that in our life and we choose to take breaks from them so that we can keep balance, because that's not our preferred communication style, and it's hard for us to receive it because the energy is so abrasive. It almost feels as if someone who communicates like that does not care about how they're being received. It's unnecessary to yell all the time, right? Similar with what you just said, less is more with words, same with volume and tone. And so then we got facial expressions, body posture, and movement or hands, right? I use my hands a lot because it's a way for me to express myself when I'm thinking about something that I feel passionate about. And so it grounds me in my body and reminds me that I'm the one talking and I'm the one communicating. And so it's easy to slip into this habit of worrying about what someone else thinks when we're communicating. But like Kyle said, the purpose of communicating is to fill our needs, right? It really is. And so that's why we had you do all this work up until this point. I mean, communication generally is the first thing people talk about. But if you don't know why you're opening up your mouth or what you're trying to get out of the situation, it makes it so difficult to measure where you're at. And this program is about measurement, right? We're talking about, your priorities, your goals, your values, your how you interact with people, your intention, these feedback loops that we create. And so we cannot understand if we're making progress or not if we don't have a baseline. And so that's kind of what we're inviting you to do. And so yeah, the third thing I had on communication style is evaluating what lands. And so similar to being in a different environment, I may change my tone, especially with who I'm talking with. For example, if I'm explaining something that's sad to my child, I will definitely, talk a little bit more compassionately than I will maybe with, I don't know, a stranger, right? Even though I'll have a softer voice, the intention with a stranger would to just be allowed, offer support and then leave the room. With my child, I'm going to offer support and I'm going to hold that space and I'm going to wait for them, and I'll check in. And so it's just a little bit different. But as far as evaluating what lands, it's important for me to be able to try a communication style out and see if it's received. See if it feels happy, because if we're judging the way we communicate and our success off of what feels good, then we need to be able to check in with ourselves, and we have to differentiate the different types, different ways we can communicate. And then once you get the different ways you can communicate, you can try with the different people that style is communicated with.
Yeah, just to kind of give an example, I can use a lot of words and still not be understood. And I have this need to be understood. And so I get very frustrated when I spend my time and energy talking and then somebody, doesn't understand me, but doesn't tell me they don't understand me, and they'll just kind of agree with me. And so this gets to also teaching people to how to communicate with you.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to check in with people when you're talking and say, are you with me? Do you understand me?
This is a good phrase. This is what I heard you say. And you repeat back to them the ideas and the concepts that you're receiving, right? Because the conversation is a back and forth situation. And so the idea of figuring out how you communicate makes it easier so that you can make sure that other people are communicating with you in a respectful way.
Yeah, this is something we talk about all the time, is that my words might not mean to me what they mean to you.
Right.
And so we can build a shared language, which takes time, and which builds also trust, effort. And what we're trying to do sometimes is just build a shared reality. So then that builds a shared space to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can also learn about other people's values, listen to them and what's important to them, and then start trying to share our, communicate across those values, and we can then work together to meet both of our needs.
Yeah, and the big thing for me about this is that, it was such a big lesson for me to learn. I'm not going to invest all my energy into communicating and building a bridge with someone who puts zero energy back into me. It's hard to self-actualize and be patient and calm and do this trial and error in building this shared reality. And so, if Kyle and I built this bridge together and I was the only one building it, I mean, the motivation will be gone. And in fact, it'll actually hurt, because I'm expecting you to show up for me in a way and contribute to a common goal, value, priority, and decision that we agreed on, and then he wouldn't be doing it, right? And so that would put me in a situation of resentment, fear, pain, probably, would trigger a lot of my old wounds, which is what we're wanting to avoid. It's unnecessary to go back to the pain. And we talked a lot about rewriting our own encyclopedia, redefining the words. And so a great way to start practicing communicating is, when a topic gets brought up, bring up your definition of what that means to you. Right. We do that all the time, right, even with people that we don't really know, because it creates, we establish vulnerability, right? We're like, well, this is what it means to me. What does it mean to you? Because we're trying to find that common playing field so that we can play together on the same field, right? And people who have enough effort to put back into the relationship, who want to build with you, they will have that too. And that's a really quick way to decide who you should be, investing in, because it's an investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last thing is that we want to communicate with people, and sometimes it can seem superficial, but it's how we create connection with people, whether it's nonverbal communication or verbal communication. But sometimes just simply reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, do you need help, or are you okay, or can be the biggest thing to that person. And so it can go a long way to put yourself out there a little bit. You probably won't even have to do anything, but people that are struggling don't often get a lot of hands put out for them. And so if you can create that connection and put out, if you have that, as you talk about your cup overflowing enough to just reach out and see that person, get out of yourself and see that person is, either in need or, not quite where they're at, then, those things will come back to you, in different ways, in different shapes, and different forms. And, the other thing I was going to talk about,
can I jump in
yeah,
really
please.
fast? Okay, so check-ins are absolutely amazing. They're great for you, confidence builder, and it's wonderful practice to reach out to someone and be vulnerable, but check in and put them before yourself, right? I actually came home and I put one person on my calendar 2 weeks apart just to remind myself to text them and check in with them, just because I care, right? We are all on our own programs, and people who have not yet self-actualized or developed a program or tried to begin their recovery of their past adopted experiences, beliefs, etc., right, their childhood experiences, they might not have the tools available, right? And so if we are ready to put this work into action, we can be that beacon for them, right? And that's the goal. This is going to give back and create this feedback loop that people will be very attracted to. We're going to start attracting the right kind of people. We're going to teach other people how to treat others, right? If I check in with someone who, maybe isn't used to having people check in with or has never checked in with anybody, I check in with them. Hey, I just want to check in. How are you doing? How's your body feeling? I know that you have had some health concerns going on. Then it shows her that that's what good friends do, right? And then she gets opportunity to do that to someone else moving forward. And so when we're talking about, acting and using, how should I say this? How we act is a demonstration of what we want in return. Then that in itself teaches other people how to treat us. And that's kind of where we're going. You do all this hard work on evaluating, identifying, and discovering, and then it all takes care of itself. So slowly but surely. Yeah, it's a slower process, but what I will say, one last thing, is that bring up what communication styles are to other people. Start to observe them. Start to just, while you're interacting, study them, because that's how we learn. And you'll see what works and what doesn't work. And there's so many different variables in communication. And so that's something that we want to have flexible thinking on. Flexible thinking and this constant checking in with ourselves as well, to make sure that what we're doing has the proper intention and we're getting the good results, that our information is landing. Yeah, that's good. All right.